Now what we are going to do today is we are going to start with the data structures. We also call them collections in Python, and we are primarily going to look at lists, tuples and sets for today. There is a reason I am not going to cover all of these today. We are probably going to do dictionaries next time onwards. It may be too much to consume or digest in a single class. So let me just get started with lists now. But before we get started, do you have any questions from the last class? Do you have any doubts to clarify from the last class? String handling. No? Shall I move ahead?
Yeah, we can move.
Sure. All right. So let's get started with the list now. Right. So what happens in Python is that you have a few collections available, right? We have a few collection types available. These are nothing but these are different types of arrays which have specific properties, if I may say so. So the first such collection is called a list, and we are going to look at list first, right? So the way list is defined is it is a collection. What is a collection? It is a collection of items, right? It is a collection of
So
values.
Manish,
Yeah.
can you zoom it out?
All right. So we were trying to discuss what is a collection, right? So collection is nothing but a set of items, right? A set of items could be something which is having some similarity within each other, or it may also be something which does not have any similarity, right? So a group of cards is a collection, right? A set of coins is a collection. A set of pens or pencils is a collection. A set of computer peripherals is a collection. Same ways, the way we are defining a list here is the set of programming languages, right? Or a group of programming languages, we are defining them as a list, right? So it does not necessarily mean that all the items in a list they should have some similarity within them. They may be dissimilar as well. So that is the first property, right? It is a collection. The other one is it is ordered, right? Now what does ordered mean? The items in the list, right? The items in the list, right? So the first item, the second item, the third item, the fourth item, fifth item, and so on. They are going to be stationed or positioned at a specific location. So if I am defining my list as languages, right, and then I'm specifying these 5 values or programming languages, then C will always be having a 0 index, and that is what ordering means, right? It will never, to fetch C, you will always need to use the index as 0. You cannot fetch C at a location which is number 5, right, or number 4, index number 4. That is what ordered means. It does not mean sorted, by the way, because here we are not talking about sorting, we are talking about ordering. The items in the list will have a fixed order, and they are going to have the same order in which you have defined them. So if you have defined C before C++, then C will always come before C++. So these are the two properties, right? The third one is these are changeable. So what does it mean? We will see what changeable means, right? But simply put, what is possible in a list is you can change the items of the list, right? So these are the items of the list, right? The 5 items. You can change them in whatever way you want them to be changed to. So you can create duplicate entries, or you can drop them or delete them. You can add new items to the list, and you can do whatsoever, right? It clearly says that it allows duplicate numbers. So let us see how do we define a list, and then we will see what are the operations that we can perform when it comes to lists in Python. So the first thing, right, whenever we need to define a variable, the syntax is very simple. You define the variable name is equal to, and then what is it that you're defining? You need to specify on the right side. So how do you define a list? We have seen this briefly earlier. A list is a collection of items and if you enclose the list or the collection of items inside big brackets, then it becomes a list by default. And this is what is happening here. When we execute this line of code, a list with the name languages will get created. Now, how do we know that it is actually creating a list and not any other data type, right? So for that, we have a simple command. We have seen this earlier as well. We can print type of this variable, right? And that is going to give us the data type of this variable, right? So see what it is giving us. It is giving us class list. Now, what does it mean? It means that our languages variable is defined as a list, and this is what we wanted. So what will happen? What should we expect, right? We should expect the same set of properties that we discussed earlier, right? This is a collection of items or a list of items. Of course it is. We can already see that we have defined a list of programming languages in there. It is bound to be ordered and it can change as well. So we will see what these two mean, and it will also allow duplicate members. So we will try to see if that is possible or not. So these are the primarily three properties of a list. It is ordered, it is changeable or mutable, and somewhere you will find the text saying this is mutable, right? Instead of changeable, you may also find something which says this is mutable. So when you see mutable, actually what you should interpret is this is changeable, right? Mutable or non-mutable, you may also find them. So okay, all right, so let's see. Easy, we already have seen the print command, right? So if you want to print all the elements or all the items of the list, then simply you use the print function and specify the list inside the parentheses. So okay, that is done. Now how do we actually access the items within this list, right? So we have 5 elements in this list, right? And this is going to be exactly similar to what we talked about yesterday for the string, right? To fetch the first character of the string, what did we do? Whatever the variable name was, after the variable name, we were specifying the index position, right? So if we were specifying 0, then it was printing the first character of the string, and if we were specifying 0 to 3, then it was printing the 0th, second, first and second 3 elements from the or 3 characters from the string, right? That is the same thing what is going to happen in this case. In case of a list, you can actually do the same, right? So since we know that we have a specific index assigned to all the items in the list, you can actually refer to them using their index numbers. So when we say languages 0, then what is it that we are referring to? We are referring to this item, the first item. If you need to access the third item, you need to specify the index as 2. So let's see what happens. See, when we've specified the index as 0, it is printing the first element, and when we specify, let me copy it, number 2, then it is printing the third element. So pretty simple. It is exactly working the same way as our indexes was working in the case of a string that we saw yesterday. And we already know that indexes in Python start with 0, so you will always have to start with 0 as the first element. So I don't think there is any complication as such in here, but then there are a few new things that we will learn today, right? So the first new thing that we are going to learn today is, the negative indexes, right? I already told you and that indexes in Python start from 0, right? So what are our elements here? We have C, C++, Java, Python and .NET, right? So let me try and show you how does the negative indexes work. So you have C, C++, Java, Python and .NET, right? So these are my all the elements of the list, right? So this is what my list is, and these are my all elements. The index numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there is no doubt about these. What Python allows you to do is you can also refer to them as, this is my default index, right? Default indexes. These are my default indexes, right? It also allows you negative indexes. How do we write negative indexes? So it will start from the last element in the list, right? So it will start from the last element, and you can refer to this element, which is .NET, by specifying -1 in the negative index. So when you specify -1, what you're referring to is the last index, right? So writing 4 or writing -1 in this list is going to be the same. Same ways, if you want to specify this element, then you can actually write -2. If you want to specify this element, you can specify -3, then you can specify -4, -5. And this is going to be equivalent, right? So writing 0 in this case is equivalent to writing -5. Writing 1 is going to be equivalent to -4. Same way, -2 is the same as, sorry, 2 is equal to the same, 2 is the same as -3, 3 is the same as -2, and 4 is going to be the same as -1. Now you may be thinking, where should we use them, right? Where should we use them, and why do we even have negative indexes? Because negative numbers do not really make any sense here, right? So let's see where we can actually use them. Let's suppose, right? Let's suppose you want to print all, a few items from the end, but you do not really know what is the total number of items in the list, right? If you know here that you have 5 elements, right? And if I want to, and if I ask you that you print the last 2 elements, right, or the 2 elements at the end of the list, right, just print them, then one thing is for sure, that you need to know how many numbers of items are there in this list, right? Unless and until you know the number of items, you will not be able to give them the index numbers, right? So you can only give them index numbers to the last 2 elements only when you know the total number of items, right? Because you need to start from left, 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. But what if I do not give you that answer, and I'm still asking you to give me those 2 elements from the rightmost, right? There you can actually use the negative index, and this is what we are trying to see here, right? So when you print languages -1, then this is going to print, like I showed you, the last element, this element, using -1, right? This is what it is going to show us. See, this is my last element. What you can also do is, instead of this, you can specify, let's say, -2. So what is -2 printing? -2 is printing, see, -2 is printing Python. And if you, instead of writing -2, if you write +3, then also you'll get the same result. So these are 2 different ways of doing the same stuff. The new thing that we learned today is there is something called as negative indexes in Python as well, and negative indexes work from the opposite side, from the end of the list. It will start from the end of the list, and here it starts from -1, right? From the forward side, the indexes start from 0, and from the backward side, the indexes start from -1, right? Which is what I have already showed you. This is starting from 0, and this is starting from -1. So this is how you actually work with negative indexes. Now, since you have negative indexes, what you can also do is you can specify a range, right? So how can you specify a range? You can specify a range as -1 to -3. So what will that mean? A -1 to -3 would mean these 2 elements, right? Because the last element is of course skipped, so it will start from here and end up till -2. See, right? So it is printing Java and Python, and that is not correct. So this is printing a blank list. This is printing Java and Python, and it should actually print .NET and Python, right? So why is that so? So this is my starting index, okay. So -3 and -1. So can anyone tell me what is the problem here? Why is it not printing the last two elements, Python and .NET, and actually printing Java and Python? Anyone? Just try, take a guess. Sorry, say that loud.
I was just guessing. Maybe because of that we gave this. Okay. No.
It is starting from the minus third position and this stepping as -1.
-1.
There it is taking
No,
1.
so it is.
Can you give 2 instead of -1 there?
2?
Yeah. -1 to -3. You should take like that. Then
So,
it will go.
right. So one issue which is very apparent here is that it is moving in the forward direction, right? It is
Yeah, correct.
right, and that is where the problem lies. It is starting from -1, so it is starting from -1, right? It is starting from -1. -1 is .NET, right? And then this is ending, supposed to end at -3, right? So -3 would be Java. But then what is the direction where it is headed? It is headed towards the positive direction by default, right? It is always headed towards the positive direction by default. So if you start from here, this is your starting position, this is your ending position, and if you are headed towards this direction, then this is not going to work out. It can only work out if you move from start to finish, right? And that is not a parameter which is available. So ideally we should use this with just one index value, and we should not use this with a range as indexes, right? So let me just remove this for now so that you're not confused, and just use it without a range. Now the next thing that we need to look at is how to use a range, right? And this is of course going to be for the positive indexes, and we have already seen this, right? So 2 to 4, right? So 2 to 4 would be 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So Java, Python and .NET. But then why is .NET not printed? Because 2 to 4 would mean 2 and 3, right? So 2 to 4 would mean, you know, this one, this element and this element. We will not print the fourth one because the last value which we specify here is going to get skipped. So it is printing Java and Python. There are a few other variations of the range, right? You can choose to skip the starting position, and you can also choose to skip the ending position. Now what will happen in those cases? If you do not specify the start position, then it will always start from
By default it will take starting position,
the
0
starting,
to
the starting position, which is 0, right?
Yeah.
So what is happening in this case when you are specifying, not specifying a start position, only specifying the ending position for, it is actually starting from the beginning of the list, right? So it is starting from this position, right? But in the other case, if you are specifying the start position and not specifying the end position, then it will start from the second position, in fact the third position, 2 index number 2. It will start from index number 2 and then it will move to the end of the list wherever it encounters the end of the list, right? So let's see if that is the case. So it starts from Java and then moves to the end of the list, right? So it is printing Java, Python and .NET, right? So this is where it is. So we have kind of seen these, ways of indexing, right? And this is not new to us. This is exactly how it works for strings as well, which we saw yesterday. The same way it will work for a list as well. Now you may be wondering that is this the only way you can actually define a list, or there are other ways as well. So we have seen this earlier as well, but then I think now that we are talking about lists in detail, it is important for us to understand the fact that a list can be as diverse as you want, right? So the first one is C, which is a character. The next one could be a number. The third one could be 12.25, a floating number. The fourth one could be a Boolean value, and this is totally fine. You can define a list with multiple items which all belong to different data types, right? To make it a little readable, let me put in some spaces, and this is fine as well. You can define a list which can contain any data type. That is totally fine. There is no problem in that. And to take this even further, let me do one thing. What I will do is I will copy over this list, and inside this list I'll put in another list, and you'll be amazed that that is possible as well. So what I'm doing is, see, what am I doing? I'm creating a list which is named mylist1. The first element is a character, C. The second element is a number. The third element is a floating point number, a decimal number. The fourth one is a Boolean number, and fifth element is another list. So a list can also contain another list in itself. That is also possible. Let's see what happens. See, it is printing it the same way. Now, how do we know that this is actually a list within a list, right? So let's do some further research in here, right? Let's do some further research and actually be very sure that this is the case. So the first thing that we do, which is our type command or type function, let's see mylist1. What is the type of mylist1? So it says mylist1 is a list, right? This is fine. What do I do? Which is what is the index number for this list in this? What is the index number of this list in this list?
4.
So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So
Yes.
let me do one thing. Let me now print the data type of this 4. Now see, this is also again a list, right? But if I do the same thing with, let's say, 2, then it is giving me float. Why so? Because these are the items, right? Number 1, number 0, index number 0, index number 1, index number 2. So index number 2 is giving me float, but index number 3 and then 4, when we reach here, it is actually giving me another list, which means this is a list in itself, right? Now, how do you access the individual elements within this list? That is going to be simple, but I will probably let you guys answer this. How do I access C++ now? How do I access C++? First, let me know how do you access the list inside the list. What is the index number for this list?
4.
This is 4, right? So let me first specify this. I can copy this. What is happening? So I can specify this, right? This is giving me this list. Now, if this is giving me a list, then how do you access C++ from this list?
We can store this is no available and then we can access.
We can specify.
We can store this particular list into another variable.
So, what is the index of this list? This is 0 and this is 1.
0, 1,
And we want the first, the element from the first position, right? So what you can do is we can just specify 1 here, and that is it. So if it is a list within the list, then we will need to provide 2 indexes. The first index is going to be the index of the list itself, and then the second index is going to be the index of the item within the list, right? So you guys only told me that the index for this item is 4, but the index for C++ within this list is going to be 0, 1. So how do we access C++? We specify 4 and then 1, right? If you want, I can show that to you visually as well, so that it becomes a little more clear, because this is a little complex to understand, right? So let me do one thing. This is my number, first element, then we had a number 3, then we had a floating point number 2.5, and then we had a, right, these are my elements, and then we had a list, right? I'll just keep this list small for now for simplicity, and how will the indexes work out, right? This will have an index of 0, this will have an index of 1, this will have an index of 2, true will have an index of 3. Now all of these elements will have an index 4, but if you want to access individual items, then you can access them using double indexing. This is going to be 4, 0. This one is going to be 4, 1, and Java is going to be 4, 2. This is how you will need to access them, and this is the only way actually for you to access them. We wanted to access C++, and this is what we used actually. We used 4 and 1. Clear, guys? So now in a sense, right, this statement truly reflects that a list can contain anything, not just these items, right? You can even contain a tuple, which we are going to see shortly. We can also contain a set, or we can also contain a dictionary within a list, right? Since we have already seen lists so far, I am just taking this example to make it a little simple, but then you can also contain a tuple inside this. So let me not complicate this any further and just move on. We have already seen how to actually print a list within a list, right? How to access elements of a list within another list. So this is done. Moving on to the properties of the list, right? So one of the properties that we saw in the definition is that the list values are mutable, right? Or I can say they are changeable. So what does it mean? It means that you can add elements to the list, or you can also change the elements of the list itself, right? So the first element of our list is C, right? And what we want is, we want to change this element itself. We want that C should be changed to something else. Now how do we do that? To do that, we can just assign whatever new value you want this to be at the 0th index position, and this is going to actually work out well for you. So what are we doing? Languages 0 would be the first index where we have the value C. We want to replace it with another value, Borland C, right? What is going to happen? See, my first element has changed. So what does it mean? It means that all the elements or any of the elements of a list are mutable or changeable. We can change them based on our need. So that is the first one. Correspondingly, if you want to change any other element, you can just use the index number of that element. If you want to change Java to something else, you can just change this element using the index number of that element. So that is simple. The mutability is a very simple concept. You can just change based on the index number. Now looping through the list, right? We have seen this a couple of times earlier, but then I put this example here as well. If you want to loop through the list, then you can actually use a for loop for this. This is going to be much simpler. So for item in languages, so for all the items in the list, it is going to print the item. Now my question to you is, my list contains another list, right? If you look at it, my list contains another list, right? My list 1 contains another list, right? So when I print this, how is the individual elements going to get printed, right? Is it going to print C1, 12.25, true, C, C++, Java, Python and .NET separately, or is this going to treat this list as an individual list and print all of these values together?
Individual.
Second option.
Okay, so I have both the answers, right? And actually what is going to happen is, this is going to print you this list as an individual item, this is as an individual item, this will print individually, this will print individually, and all of these are going to get printed as a single list. Why is that so? Because if you look at this list, right, how many items this list has? It has 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. It has just 4 items. If you get inside this list, then it has further 5 elements. That is a different story. But if you look at my list 1, it only has 5 elements, and this list is going to be considered as one element. This is not going to be considered as 5 different elements. This is one list. A list is a member of another list. So this is going to be continued to be considered as a list, right? And that treatment is not going to change. So when you print this here, let me copy this. My list 1, then you see it is actually printing this as a whole list, right? And if you really want to change this, then what you can do is only print this element, right? So 0, 1, 2, yeah. So this is what is happening, right? I'm printing my list 4. What is my list 4? My list 4 is this, another list. When you print this, then it is actually printing you the list which is contained in the outer list, right, or the main.
In case if I want to show all line by line, one by one, how can I do that in that case?
So in that case, you will need to actually print them separately, right? And you know how to do that, right? You will need to probably break this into another list, right? So what you can do here is, for items in my list, right, my list 1, print this, but if the item is you can probably use a if statement here, right, where you specify if this is the item, right? So you need to make use of indexes there in that case. So index is equal to 0 and for index is less than 4, then print this. Else what? You will reach another list, right? Then you will need to run another for loop for items in my list 1 4 or index print items. So what is happening if it is less than 4? Then this, oh, the problem is that we did not increase our counter index plus is equal to 1. This is what you wanted. So this
Yes.
is kind of flattening the whole list, right? This is going to be logical, right? There is no way, there is no Python syntax that lets you do
Can
this.
you explain this code one more time?
Why not? I will definitely do that. But the thing is that, you know, something which is possible using a specific command or a function which Python lets you do, you can use them. Otherwise, you will need to build the logic yourself. So your request was that I want to print all of these items individually, right? How can you do that? You can only do that by building some logic on top of what is already available, right? So what is the logic that I built? I'm printing all the elements till index number 4 individually. So these are the ones which are going to get printed, right? See the first part. I've started the index with 0 and I'm incrementing the index by 1 every time within the outer for loop. But what is happening here is till the time my index value is less than 4, I'm just printing the item, right? So that ways C is getting printed 0, index 0, index 1 is getting printed, index 2 and index 3, all of these items are getting printed. But the moment my index value is not less than 4, either equal to 4 or more than 4, then in this case my program control is moving to else. And what is it that I am doing here? Now I have specified my list 1 index, right? So what will this be? It will be my list 1 and the value of index is going to be 4. So in this case, this for loop is going to print all the elements of my list 1 4, right? And what is my list 1 4? My list 1 4 is another list, right? And that is how it is printing all the elements using this for loop, right? So that again, the easy thing to do and figure out what is happening here and how to interpret this is doing a dry run. You only have a my list variable here and we have only a single index, right, variable. So you can quickly do the dry run yourself, right? So that is done. Let's move on. So we will look at a few functions here, right? You can use them directly over a list or any other data types that we are going to see or any other collection types that we are going to see. So one such function is len, and len gives you the length, right? So what will happen in this case is when you specify len of languages, then this is going to get replaced by the length of the variable or the list itself, right? So what is the length of the list? What is the length of the list? My length of the list is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So my indexes start from 0 and ends at 4. So what is the length of this list?
4.
This
0,
is
1, 2, 3, 4.
so count them, right? Index starts from 0, but then that will not give you the list.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So this is 5, right? It is going to give you 5. So let me first show you how length works or a len function works. So my len function gives me the length, right?
Yes.
Which is 5. And what is happening here? Instead of specifying 5, if I specify 5, then this is always going to be 0 to 5. And based on the if the length of the list changes, then I will need to change this statement here, right? I will need to change this to if the list becomes from a 5 element list to a 7 element list, then I'll need to change it to 7. If it becomes 10 member list, then I'll need to change it to 10. But what if I write len of languages, then we will not need to worry about the changing length of the list itself, because a list can change, right? The elements of a list can change. So if we print using a length function here, then you can be rest assured that this is going to print you all the elements of the list, and this is not going to miss any item in that list, right? So you can use the length function as well. Len function, this is used to generate calculate the length of the list. So we had already seen this variation, right, where we were specifying a number, then we can also specify a length function here of the list. Okay, moving on, how do we find out or search an item within the list, right? So we have already seen these membership operator. We call this as membership operator. So we have already seen this, that when you use the membership operator in or not in, then it gives you a logical true or false value. So when you say C++ in languages, then it is going to search if C++ is a member of languages or not, and give you true or false based on whether it is found in that list or not, right? So we are doing searching within that list, right? We are searching for C++ and Pascal, and we are getting these values true and false, right? So we already seen the list contains C++, right, but it does not have Pascal in here, right? So since it does not have Pascal, it is returning you false here. Some of the other common functions, right, which are available there in list is what we are going to see now. So we have already seen len, it gives you the length. What are the other functions that we need to look at? So we have this function called append, right? So remember, while defining the list, we said that a list is mutable or it is changeable, which means we can, this is the element which we changed, right? We changed this from C to Borland CC, but then there are other operations that we can perform as well when it comes to changing the list, right? So what is it that we can do? We can append an item to the list. Now what does append mean? Append means add at the end of the list, and this is what is happening. We are adding another language, and this language is FoxPro, and when we print languages after appending FoxPro, you see that FoxPro is appended at the end of the list, right? This is already executed once, but I'll execute it once again so that you see it yourself. So FoxPro got appended at the end of the list, and this is what it does. So appends the new element at the end of the list. Now there is another way of adding a new member to an existing list, and that is using the insert function. But here the element that you are going to add is not going to get added at the end, but then you have a choice now. Where do you want the element to get added? At which index location? So there are two things that you need to specify here. You need to specify first the index position, and then you can specify what is the element that you want to add, right? So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to add at one index location, which is the second element, Pascal, right? So when you do that, then what happens is Pascal is a new entry in the list, and this is getting added at the first location, which is the second item in the list. So there are two ways you can add elements, right? You can directly add to the end of the list, or you can add at whatever location you want, specifying the index location. Okay, what are the other operations that you can do to change the list? You may want to remove items from the list, right? So we can do that as well, and there are the same ways we have added items to the list, we can remove items to the list as well. So there are two variations. You can either specify which element you want to remove. So you can specify that you want to, let's say, remove Pascal that you just added, in that case, if you see, Pascal got removed from the list. Now, how did we remove it, right? We removed it by specifying the element, right? So wherever, at whatever index location this element will be found, it will just get deleted. You do not need to specify the element position, right, or the item position or the index number. You do not need to specify that. You just specify the element and it will get deleted. The other way to delete is by using this pop command. Now this is going to work exactly the opposite of append. So append adds an item to the end of the list, and pop removes whatever element you have on the rightmost or at the end. This is just going to remove it. See, there is no parameter that we are specifying. We are not specifying what is it that we want to remove. When you say pop, it is just going to pop out or delete the element at the very end or at the rightmost. So when you do that, it prints Fox Pro, which means it has deleted this element, right? And now when you print this, it is printing all the elements and not the last element. When you run this again, let's say you run this again, which you can do, now it says .NET, which means now it has deleted this element, which is now the rightmost element, .NET. So these are the two ways in which you can add to a list or remove from the list, right? So we saw we could append to the end of the list, or we could insert at whatever index location you wanted or wished to. The other one was where you could remove an item by specifying the item value, and you could also do a pop operation to remove the item from the rightmost. So these are the two variations to add as well as remove. Now there are a few other things as well that you can do, right? And let's look at this. We already seen this. Let's look at del. So del is a command. Now this is something that you can, which is not restricted to list, but you can use this as a with list as well. And delete is to delete a specific item of the list. Now this is going to work same as what we did here with remove, right? When we remove, when we perform the remove operation, then it is going to delete that item or drop that item from the list. But del command and remove are little different, right? In remove, we are specifying the value of the element itself that you want to remove. But when you look at the del command, it is slightly different, right? In del command, you are specifying the index number. So if you want to drop the first element, then you can specify del language is 0, and then this is going to drop the first element. So this first element got dropped. If you wanted to drop, let's say Java, then you could have specified del languages 2 in that case, and it would have dropped Java instead of bold and C. So this is how you also delete an element from the list. Now what will this command do? Any guesses? Del languages.
Remove the whole list.
So yes, of course, this is going to drop the or delete the list itself, right? So when you do this, my list will not exist anymore. The whole list got deleted. And when you print this, it says name languages is not defined. Now this error only occurs when you try to access a variable which is not defined, right? And when we do del languages, this is what is going to happen. This is going to actually delete all the elements, not just the element, but then this is going to delete the variable itself, and that is what is happening here. There is another command that you can use, or another function that you can use, right? This is going to be slightly different from del. It will not delete the variable, it will not delete the element, it will not delete the list itself, but then it will just clear the elements of the list, right? So it will delete all the elements of the list, but let me first define the list, because my list is gone now. So I have a list. Let me copy it over so that you guys can run it as well. put it here. So when you so this is my list, right? But when I do a clear, then what happens is my list becomes empty. So all the elements got deleted at once. This is what clear does. So del is going to delete the variable itself, but clear is going to just empty the list and not delete the variable. And that is why I am not getting the same error which I was getting after using the del command. Del languages was making this undefined. All right. Now, a couple of last things for the list, right, that we should look at is how do you copy from one list to another. Now, this is going to be very simple, guys. This is nothing new that we are learning here. The way you assign one variable to another variable, you can assign a list to another list as well. So, my lang or my language is equal to languages. When you do that, then whatever is there in the languages variable or list gets assigned to my languages, right? So let me first execute this statement so that my list has some value, and then let me specify run my language is equal to languages, and then when I print the value of my language, then this is containing the same list as the languages list, and this is a simplest way to copy over the list, right? I mean, there is nothing fancy here, there is nothing complicated about this statement. You can just specify I is equal to statement to assign it to another list. The other thing that you can actually do is you can actually perform a yeah.
Can we specify the index number as well when you copy one list to another list?
You can do that. You can do that as well. Since this is going to be a valid statement, right? You can do that as well. This is totally fine. This is what you wanted? Yeah, so you can do that. Definitely do that. So my language is going to only contain elements 0, 1 and 2 in this case, and this is what is happening here. Now the last operation that we need to look at here is how does your plus operator behave here, right? And this plus operator is a very powerful operator, right? It changes its nature based on what do you use it with. So when you use it with two integer numbers, it adds them. When you use plus operator with two string values, then it concatenates them. And the same thing is going to happen when you use it with two lists, right? So my languages is a list, and then I have defined another variable which is called more languages, and I have put in two languages in here, R and Ruby on Rails. Now when I perform a plus operation between these two lists, then it is actually doing a concatenation of the list. So you will have a new list which will contain all the elements from both the lists, and this is what it does. And that is it for the list, guys. If you have any questions, do let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on to tuples now. No?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right. So, okay. So perform these operations, see it yourself, guys. There are a lot of functions that you need to know, but then all of this is going to be easy if you perform them yourself. So moving on, let's look at what a tuple does, right? What is a tuple? So again, this is another type of collection, right? We have already seen one collection type, which is list. Tuple is going to be the second type of collection, right? Now all the collections that we are going to discuss, tuple, list, tuple, sets and dictionary, they are going to be pretty much the same with some differences as compared to each other, and these are the differences that we are going to look at right now. So a tuple is a collection, of course. This is not a new thing, we already know that, which is ordered. Okay, so what it means is this is also going to have the concept of the order that we have already seen earlier with list, which means we can use indexes here as well. Now the difference that we see here is that it says unchangeable. Now what does this mean? We will see. So one difference between a list and a tuple is that list was mutable, changeable, but tuple is not mutable. It is non-mutable, it is unchangeable, right? And how do we write the syntax of tuple? In Python, tuples are written with round brackets. So this is a difference in the syntax, but concept wise this is continuing to be ordered, but then this is unchangeable. So we will see how this is. And since we have already seen one collection which is list, it will be easy for us to actually look at and compare it with a list. So let's get started, right? So the first difference is I have taken the same list of elements, but now I am defining this as a tuple, right? Because my syntax is a little different here, right? I have specified a small brackets instead of big brackets. So let me define this and print the type of the variable, right? When I print the type, you see that this is a tuple. Okay, how do we print? This is again going to be simple, nothing new here. You just use the print statement. Can we use indexes? Yes, we saw that this is ordered list, which means it needs to honor the index theory, right? So this is what it is going to honor as well. So let me first use a positive index and then we can use a negative index as well. So it is printing the first element and then the last element as well. So it is actually working with positive indexes as well as negative indexes. So nothing new here, right? We already seen this, and let's just skip through really quickly here, right? So can we use a range? Yes, since you can specify indexes, you can specify a range. So 2 to 4 is valid. You can specify the start position, you can specify the end position. These are all going to be valid. So there is nothing new here so far, right? The concept which is new here is that this is non-mutable, right? Which means we cannot change the elements of the item, of the list, right? Or the elements of the tuple. So how are the different, what are the different ways in which we can change a list, right? We can add a new item, we can change an existing item, or we can delete or drop items from the list, right? These are the three ways in which we can change the list. Let's do them one by one and see if they are supported or not. So the first thing that we are trying to do exactly the same way what we did for the list, right? We are trying to change the first element and wants to change it to bold and C, right? And see what happens. So we have got a error in this line of code and it says tuple object does not support item assignment, right? So this is very clear that it does not support any kind of a assignment, which means we will not be able to change elements in the tuple, and that is why we call that a tuple is non-mutable. So this is not supported. Okay, can we delete items from a list, from a tuple? Let's see if this is going to be supported. So what we are doing here is del language is 0. So we want to delete the first item from the list, and let's see if you can do this. So again, it says there is an error and tuple object does not support item deletion. So again, this is on the same lines that you cannot actually change anything. Once the tuple is defined, you cannot change the tuple. So you can think of this as a read-only list, right? I mean, just for your understanding, you can think of a tuple as a read-only list. You can refer to an items of a tuple, but you cannot really change it once it is defined. And what all you can contain within a tuple, you can define it the same way as you define a list, which means it can contain string, it can contain a number, it can contain a floating point number, it can contain a boolean, or it can contain another list or a tuple in itself. But once defined, you cannot really change it. So you can think of this collection, which is tuple, as a read-only list, right? This is just for your understanding, guys. Do not say this to anyone in an interview or otherwise, but I'm just telling this to you just so that you understand the difference between a list and a tuple. You can consider this as a read-only list, and this is going to behave as a read-only list for you always. So looping through the tuple, right now, this is going to be no different than how you do it for a list, right? And I've just copy pasted the same code from above that I used for list, and you can actually use a tuple here as well. Now this is a tuple here, right? This is a tuple here, and this loop is running for each item in the tuple. The same ways you can use a len function here that we have just seen for a list. You can use a range function, a len function as well, and this is also going to give you the same result. So nothing new in here. What we can do is we can use the membership operation or operator to search through the items in the tuple as well, and when you do that, it gives you true or false value. So again, I do have C++ in the tuple and I do not have Pascal, right? So it is giving you true and false respectively. So this is also exactly the same as how we did it for the list. Now the plus operator, like I said, right, plus operator is a very powerful operator, and it changes its form every time you use it with any other data type, right? So this is my first tuple, it contains 2 elements. This is my second tuple, this contains 2 elements, and when you add them, then this is going to give you a new tuple with all the items from first tuple followed by all the items from the second tuple, right? So C++, Java, R and Python, these are the 4 elements clubbed together, and this is, if you look at the collection type, this is a list, right? Just take a note of these brackets. This is a tuple in itself. So when you add 2 tuples, you get a third tuple. When you add 2 lists, you get a third list, a new list or a new tuple in this case. So again, this is not new, guys. I'm just showing it to you in detail so that we do not leave anything discussed in theory and not seen this working actually. So I just want to show this to you here as well. So this is kind of covered. Now there are a few functions that we have that we can actually use, right? So of course the functions like append is not a possibility. The functions like insert is not a possibility, because these will eventually end up changing the list, right? Or changing the tuple, which is not supported here. Pop is also not supported in case of a tuple. So you see the list of the functions that we have is pretty small, right? This is a very small list of functions which is available in tuple as compared to the list. You do not have append, you do not have insert, you do not have del, and you do not have pop method. You do not have remove method as well. So all of these are not available. So what is it that we can do? We have already seen len. Len is supported, right? So that is the first one. Let me add it here as well so that you can actually so let me add len here so that you have a reference in this section as well, right? So you can use len to print the length of the tuple. You can print the count of any specific item as to how many times this item is present in the tuple, right? So it will count all the occurrences of this specific element, how many times this list is present in the tuple. The same way you can print the index number, right? So if you want to know at which position this element exists, then you can actually search and print the index as well, right? So let me change it. The index for Python is going to be 3, and this is what it prints, right? Python 3. Alright guys, so with this we are done with tuple as well. The only thing that you should actually do is think of tuple as a list itself, but then with some differences, a few things which are not allowed in tuple on top of the list. Your primary collection is always or primarily going to be, or in most of the cases going to be, either a list or a dictionary, which we have not seen so far. And you know, the other ones which are sets and tuples, they are going to be used very sparingly, right? These are not going to be very widely used. And one way of remembering the functions or the statements available with a tuple or a set is by looking at how it is different from a list itself. Because we know with list you need to be really thorough, with dictionaries you need to be really thorough, but then even if you are not so thorough with tuple and set, you'll be all right. It is not used that much, and there is a small little differences when compared to a list, right, which we have already seen. Because a list is mutable, changeable, but then the tuple is not mutable, it is not changeable. So some of the functions are not supported, and we have already seen that list. So with tuple, what we have seen is that mutability is not allowed, and that is the reason there are a few functions which are not supported. Now let's look at sets, right, and see how it is similar or different compared to my list or tuple. So when you look at the definition of it, right, this is a set is also a collection, right? So there's nothing new about this. This is unordered. So my list was ordered, my tuple was ordered. Now we have a difference, right? The difference is that the sets are unordered. Now what does it mean and what will it lead to is something that we are going to see right now. And it also says it is unindexed. So unindexed would mean that there are no indexes in here, right? You cannot fetch the element of a list using the index number, and there is no ordering as such. Any element can exist at any specific location. It does not have a order concept, or it does not have an index. So this is what we are going to see. This is how it is different from a list and tuple. In Python, the syntax to write a set is, or define a set is, we use curly brackets, right? So just change the bracket and you can actually change the collection type itself. So now again we are using the same name of the variable. Now we are using the same set of elements as well in this collection, but now we are using or specifying this collection as a set. And how is that happening? By specifying curly brackets, right? So big brackets is for list, small brackets is for tuple, and curly brackets is for sets. So okay, right, let me execute this. So my set is defined. How do I know that this is a set? Of course, type variable is going to help us. So it says class set, and then we can actually print the elements in the same way. This is not going to be any different, right? So all of these are the same so far. The only difference is to define a set, you use a different bracket sign, you use curly brackets. Now let's get back to this. What does unordered and unindexed mean? Did anyone take a note of the print statement, the outcome? Did you see something new here?
Noted.
The elements are not the way we are defining when we are creating the set.
So far the elements were getting printed in the same order in which we were defining them, right? But then if you see here, it is not following the same order, right? It is some order which is not how we are defining, but we really do not know how it is actually ordering it, right? It is not alphabetical, it is not in the opposite direction as well, it is not printing in the opposite way, right? It is not printing in the forward direction. So we really do not know, and this is what it is already defined in the definition as well. The list is going to be a set is a collection which is unordered, and since it is unordered, it is also unindexed, which means now this element, the first element, so let me take this example, this element is not the zero index element. We really do not know, there is no indexes in here. We have a set and these are all the elements of the set, that is it. If you write languages 0 and try to fetch the first element, this is not going to give you anything, this is only going to give you an error, because there is no indexing allowed in a set. So let's see if what happens, right? So I've already run this code once and it will lead to an error, it will lead you to an error. Set object is not subscriptable, right? It is the same as a subscript or an index, they mean the same. So what it means is that you cannot really do this, and since you cannot really do this, what you cannot also do is this, right? So you cannot do either of these. You cannot change or you cannot specify the index numbers to fetch the elements of the list. And why is that so? Because as such, if you look at it, you know, set has a mind of its own, right? My second position, or sorry, third position, or index number 2, if indexes were allowed, was Java, but then if you see here, Java is at the start of the list, right? C is from the beginning of the list, it moved to the end of the list, right? And we really do not know how it is getting stored, but it will not have a index concept at all, and it will not have any ordering. So this is also not supported, and the same way leaving it out is also not supported, leaving this one out, this is also not supported. So
I have it.
yeah, please go ahead.
Do we use this in real time? Set.
We
Sets
use,
concept.
we do use, but then sets and tuples are going to be very sparingly used, very little. Mostly you will be working with, if you're processing data, or if you're doing any of your data engineering or data science activities, mostly you will be required to, let's say, 40 to 50% of the times you'll be working with list, 20 to 30% you'll be working with dictionaries. That is how it is going to be. Sets are going to be very little used, for sure. I'm not saying that it does not have a real use case, but I'm saying is, even if it has a real use case, it is going to be used very less. All of these 4 collection types are not going to be equally used for whatever use cases you may have.
Okay.
Right. So we have already seen the difference, one difference, right? This is unordered, this is unindexed, right? And we have already seen that. How do we define it using a curly brackets? Another thing that we have to see it is, which will now see, right? So it nowhere it says that a set is non-mutable, right? Which means we can mutate a set, right? Which means we can add elements to a set, and you can remove elements from a set as well. So let me see if that is possible. So when I do the add function, when I write the add function and run it, it is actually adding element to this list as well. Where it is going to get added, that is not under our control. How do we fetch this? Can we use an index number to fetch this? No, that is not true. But this list is mutable, or sorry, the set is mutable. This collection, which is called set, is mutable. You can add, you can also drop elements from this collection. How do we print? Of course, this is going to be the same. This is not different. You can just iterate through this collection, which is set, and you can print all the elements of the set. Your len function is also going to work, right? You can print your len of set, and this is going to give you that length. One thing which is also a property of this set is, let's see what is happening, right? So I already have a list where foxpro is added, right? And I'm running this command multiple times. I ran it multiple times, but then my list is not adding foxpro multiple times, right? It is only showing Foxpro once. Why is that happening? Will it be the same in case of a list and in case of a tuple? So the answer is no. One more difference that we have here in the case of and let me add it here, a set is
Unique elements of set.
yes, set contains unique elements. So you cannot contain duplicates. So even if you specify duplicates, if you want to duplicate items, it is not going to duplicate. It will just keep one copy of it and not give you any error. And that is what is happening when I am executing this multiple times. It is not giving me any error, but it is not even duplicating any item in here. If you add a new item, it will add that to this set, but it will not add the same element multiple times, so that all the elements are unique in this set.
So now we can say that sets are unique when we do some
Sorry?
data analysis.
Sorry?
We can say that sets can be used when we do some data analysis on dimension columns in order to get a unique list of items.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing where we can definitely use set for is, and this is a very clever use case is, let's say you are given a problem where you have duplicate items, right, and you need to deduplicate the list of items. Then how do you do that? If you have duplicates in an item and you want to deduplicate, then just save this list in a set and bring it back to the list, assign it back to the list, and that ways very easily your list will become deduplicated, right? It will just remove all the elements which are duplicate, right? And if you really want to see that, we can do that really quickly, and let me do that. So how we can do this? Let's say we have a list L, right, and you have right, so this is a list, it has duplicates in this, right? My set is going to be
Our bracket should be curly bracket, right?
not really. I will need to actually, no, this is not going to work. So
You have again
no, there's something wrong in here, because of which it is not working. So L is a list, then we have defined a set, empty set, then we are assigning this list to this set. Let me print if it is actually
Swapping is equal to
no. So this is where it is wrong. So this statement is not working as desired. I will look into this and let you guys know. We can just skip this for now. And what you guys can do is you can also try it on your
you just
end.
keep it as L equal to S, then print S. Is it possible?
L is equal to S where?
Yeah, there it's
But if we do that, then the list will become empty, right? The list will become empty.
Okay.
So this statement is not working as desired, because you know what it should
Um,
do. It should do is when you're assigning this to the
we are
list.
in the list, not the set. To see the print statement, we print the list only.
Sorry, say that again.
If you see the print statement, there the list is printed, not the set.
Yes, and that is what.
Right? So I think we have to add it to the for loop.
So we can do both actually, but then in this case also the problem is that when you are printing the S, it has.
I think there is override over there. Again, S will be going through the
Maybe,
analysis.
yeah, maybe we will need to call it using a function, and this assignment actually does not
We
work.
can.
So let me explore a little more, and I'll let you guys know as to what the problem is here. You guys can also explore this and find out. But then this is a very good real use case, where if you really want to dedupe a list, then you can actually assign it to a set and assign it back to a list, and that way your list will become deduplicated, right? And we will see why this is not working. We'll make it work. So last couple of things, right, with sets is that you can actually, since set is mutable, you can also remove items from the set, and when you do that, you know, you can delete an item there. So we remove Java, and then we have these two remaining as well. With sets, what you can do is you can do union of two sets, right, which is going to be the same as adding two sets, right, or all the elements of the set, right. So it will create a new set, a third set for you, and this is going to be the same as a concatenation operation that we were doing using the plus operator. So we have defined two sets. Set 1 contains ABC, set 2 contains A1 to 3, and when we write set 1 dot union and pass set 2, then actually we are creating a new set, which is a union of first set and second set, right. And what does a union do? Union will bring in all the unique elements from both the sets, right. So when you print set 3, then you see that you have C, 1, 2, 3, B and A, and since this is unordered and unindexed, there is no order to it. It is appearing in just any order, and that is how a sets work, right. So with this, guys, I'm kind of done with what I wanted to cover today. Next class onwards, we will continue with dictionary. This is going to be the next topic, and we will continue with user defined functions and all the other topics within functions. It is going to be very interesting next week, because we are going to look at some of these concepts that you may have heard of, lambda functions, map reduce. You may have heard of these in your big data or Hadoop discussions, right. And this is what we are going to see as to how these work within Python. So all of these are going to be very interesting discussions, guys, going forward. We have set the foundation in the last 3 weeks, ending today, so that we can actually discuss some of these more advanced topics in Python. And what I will request you guys is continue to do your practice the way you have been doing so far, and by tomorrow morning you will have one more assignment available in this section, where you'll be able to do your practice using list, tuple and sets. So do them. That is going to be very important for you guys, and I will also put in one assignment for strings. So like I said earlier, every module is going to have one assignment, so I'm going to upload 2 assignments, one for string and the other one for the data structures, and that is going to happen by tomorrow morning.